Okay, everybody, I got a new setup right now. I'm kind of stoked on that. In front of my guitar here is this sweet statue. I think it's a French sculptor. And it's, as you can see, I think you can maybe see it. It's a lion. And if you look close, he's stepping on a snake, which is kind of cool. And the rest, I'm just going to let you try to figure it out, take it in. I got like a... Well, anyway. 1 Samuel 16 today. So to review, Saul has failed, and he just cares about appearances. And that's why... Now Samuel just lopped off the head of a king. He's a total, like when I think of a prophet, I think of a dude who's like old and kind of decrepit maybe, but Samuel's like, he's like killing people with swords for the righteousness of God. So anyway, chapter 16, Samuel anoints David. The Lord said to Samuel, "How long will you mourn for Saul, since I have rejected him as king over Israel? Fill your horn with oil and be on your way. I'm sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." But Samuel said, "How can I go? If Saul hears about it, he will kill me." The Lord said, "Take a heifer with you and say, I've come to sacrifice to the Lord. Invite Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what to do. You are to anoint for me the one I indicate." And Samuel did what the Lord said. And when he arrived at Bethlehem's all over the place here, the elders of the town trembled. When they met him, they asked, "Do you come in peace?" So people are legitimately kind of afraid of Samuel. Samuel replied, "Yes, in peace. I've come to sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come to sacrifice with me." And then he consecrated Jesse and his sons and invited them to the sacrifice. When they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outer appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." It's just all over Samuel. That's, once again, I just can't help but feeling convicted when I read Samuel. Seems like the older that we get, the more like jaded sometimes we feel, or the more dirty we feel. And I think what I've noticed is Caleb, such a great example, an antithesis to that. Like Caleb, even in his old age, is full of purity and courage, and that's really what I hope I can be. So if you're with me about feeling kind of disenchanted, just pray for the spirit of Caleb in your life, right? Lord does not look at things people look at. People look at the outer appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And then Jesse, then Jesse called Abinadab and had him stand in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, "The Lord has not chosen this one either." Jesse had Shammah pass by. But Samuel said, "Nor has the Lord chosen this one." And Jesse, I don't know why I'm saying Jesus, and Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, "The Lord has not chosen these." So he asked Jesse, Are these all the sons that you have?" "They are still the youngest," Jesse answered. "He is tending the sheep." And Samuel said, Send him. We will not sit down until he arrives." Dude, Samuel's so intense and strong. It's crazy. So he sent for him and had him brought in, and he was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. Samuel then went to Ramah. Now the Spirit of the Lord had departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord tormented him. Saul's attendants said to him, "See, an evil spirit from God is tormenting you. Let our Lord command his servants here to search for someone who can play the lyre. He will play when the evil spirit from God comes on you, and you will feel better." So Saul said to his attendants, "Find someone who plays well and bring him to me." One of the servants answered, "I have seen a son of Jesse of Bethlehem who knows how to play the lyre. He is brave. He's a brave man and a warrior. He speaks well and is a fine-looking man, and the Lord is with him." Then Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, "Send me your son David, who is with the sheep." So Jesse took a donkey loaded with bread, a skin of wine, and a young goat, and sent them with his son David to Saul. And David came to Saul and entered his service. Saul liked him very much, and David became one of the armor bearers. Then Saul sent word to Jesse, "Allow David to remain in my service, for I am pleased with him." And once again, this just reminds me of Samuel when he was a kid staying with Eli, and now it's David staying with Saul, who he's about to replace, just like Samuel stayed with Eli, who he replaced. That's just interesting, I think. God's so, only God would think of that, the God of this book. Whenever the Spirit from God came on Saul, David would take up his lyre and play, and then relief would come to Saul. He would feel better, and the evil spirit would leave him. Chapter 17, David and Goliath. That's another thing I don't think I noticed, is that Saul already knew that David was good at playing the harp before he even killed Goliath. For some reason, I thought it was the other way around. Anyway, now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Socoh in Judah, and they pitched camp at Ephesus Dammim between Socoh and Azekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites the other, with the valley between them. Man, I remember being given a picture book of this when I was a kid, and I was actually being tested for cancer or some type of a brain disorder. And I just thought it was the coolest book. Fortunately, that all worked out for me. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span, and had a bronze helmet on his head, and wore a coat of scale of armor, bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him, and Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, Why don't you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us. Then the Philistines said, This day... I was tempted to use the Princess Bride. Maybe I'll try to after this. Like the giant Princess Bride. This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other. On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Now David was the son of an Ephrathite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. And Jesse had 8 sons, and in Saul's time he was very old. Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to the war, and the firstborn was Eliab, the second Abinadab, and the third Shammah, and David was the youngest. The 3rd oldest followed Saul. But David went back and forth from Saul to tend his father's sheep at Bethlehem. For 40 days the Philistine came forward every morning and evening and took his stand. Now Jesse said to his son David, "Take this ephah of roasted grain and then 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry there to the camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit and see how your brothers are and bring back some assurance from them. They are with Saul and all the men of Israel at the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines." Early in the morning, David left the flock in care of a shepherd, loaded up, and set out as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going to its battle positions, shouting the war cry, and Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines, facing each other. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran the battle lines, and asked his brothers how they were. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion of Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted in his usual defiance, and David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. Now the Israelites had been saying, "Do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel." Wow, what a ride, man. I'd try it. Just the taxes alone, I'd try that thing. David asked the men standing near him, "What will we do for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is the uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him. This is what will be done for the man who kills him. And when Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him. Brotherly jealousy, right? "Why have you come down here, and with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how you're conceited and how wicked your heart is. You come down only to watch the battle. Tuh. Now what have I done?" said David. "Can I even speak?" He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against the Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head, and David fastened on his sword over his tunic and tried walking around, but it was no use. "I cannot go in these," he said to Saul, "because I am not used to them." So he took them off, and then he took in his hand chose 5 smooth stones for the stream, but then in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, with his sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. It does make me think of that passage. It's kind of random, but it makes me think of that passage where Paul says, "Throw off everything that so easily entangles us, every sin." And I think that actually fits this in a funny way. It's like Saul was only giving David what seemed logical to him, but what seems logical to the world is just a hindrance and an encumbrance to the way God thinks. God thinks so much more simple and so much more bold than we do in the world. Okay, moving on. Yeah, I can't use this stuff. He approached the Philistines after he put 5 smooth stones in his pouch bag. Meanwhile, the Philistines, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David, and he looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said. "I will give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with the sword and the spear and the javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." Man, so David gives glory to God, and then even says, "into our hands, not my hands." I think that's notable. As the Philistines moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead, and the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. David ran and stood over him. He took hold of the Philistine's sword, drew it from the sheath, and after he killed him, that's interesting. So Goliath wasn't totally dead yet, at least according to this. He cut off his head with the sword, and when the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and they ran. Then the men of Israel and Judah surged forward with a shout and pursued the Philistines to the entrance of Gath and the gates of Ekron. And there their dead were strewn along the Sharon road to Gath and Ekron. And when the Israelites returned from chasing the Philistines, they plundered their camp, and David took the Philistine's head and brought it to Jerusalem. Quite the prized possession, right? How big was that head? He put the Philistine's weapon in his own tent. Wonder if he kept that his whole life. Probably did. As Saul watched David going out to meet the Philistine, he said to Abner, commander of his army, Abner, whose whose son is that youth, is that young man. Yeah, you think like when David was older and he had like kind of backslid, like he sort of, we all know that David didn't finish as good as he started. I wonder if he looked at that sword and just like wondered what happened. What happened in his life. Or if he was too ashamed to like even have it close. Or maybe he had it for everybody to see. Who knows? That would be an interesting thing to kind of embellish a little bit. As Saul did the Philistines, he kept it in his tent. As Saul watched David going out to meet the Philistine, he said to Abner, commander of the army, Abner, whose son is that young man? And Abner replied, as surely as you live, your majesty, I don't know. The king said, find out whose son that young man is. As soon as David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, with David still holding the Philistine's head. Whose son are you, young man? Saul asked. David said, I'm the son of your servant Jesse of Bethlehem. Saul's growing fear of David. This is chapter 18. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David. And remember, Jonathan is Saul's son, the really courageous son. And he loved him as himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return home to his family. Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. And Jonathan took off his robe and he was wearing, gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow and his belt. Whatever mission Saul sent him on, David was successful. That Saul gave him a high rank in the army, and this pleased all the troops and Saul's officers as well. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from the towns of Israel to meet King Saul while singing and dancing with joyful songs, with timbrels and lyres, and as they danced they sang, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. And Saul was very angry. This refrain displeased him greatly, and they had credited David with the tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a close eye on David. The next day, an evil spirit from God came forcefully on Saul. So it seems like the oppression on Saul is growing and growing. He was prophesying in his house while David was playing the lyre as he usually did, and Saul had a spear in his hand, and he hurled it, saying to himself, I'll pin David to the wall. But David eluded him twice, and Saul was afraid of David, because the Lord was with David, but he had departed from Saul. And so he sent David away from him and gave him command over 1,000 men, and David led the troops in their campaigns. In everything he did, he had great success because the Lord was with him. And when Saul saw how successful he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he led them in their campaigns. And Saul said to David, Here is my older daughter Merab, and I will give her to you in marriage. Only serve me bravely and fight the battles of the Lord. For Saul said to himself, I will not raise a hand against him. Let the Philistines do that. But David said to Saul, Who am I, and what is my family or my clan in Israel, that I should become the king's son-in-law? So when the time came from Merab and Saul's daughter to be given to David, she was given in marriage to Adriel of Melah. I think eventually he does marry one of Saul's daughters. Here it is. Now Saul's daughter Michal was in love with David. And this is crazy because Michal really choose David out later. But here it says she fell in love with him. And when they told Saul about it, he was pleased. I will give her to him. And he thought, so that she may be a snare to him, and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. So Saul said to David, now you have a second opportunity to become my son-in-law. Then Saul ordered his attendants, speak to David privately and say, look, the king likes you, and his attendants all love you. Now become his son-in-law. They repeated these words to David, but David said, do you think this is a small matter to become the king's son-in-law? I'm only a poor man and little known. And when Saul's servants told him what David had said, Saul replied, say to David, the king wants no other price for the bride than 100 Philistine foreskins to take revenge on his enemies. Saul's plan was to have David fall by the hands of the Philistines. So he kind of like challenges David, and I think David rises to this challenge. When the attendants told David these things, he was pleased to become the king's son-in-law. So I wonder what that was. Was that just the pride of the challenge of killing 100, or what? So before the allotted time had elapsed, David took his men with him and went out and killed 200 Philistines and brought back their foreskins, and they counted out the full number to the king so that David might become the king's son-in-law. And then Saul gave him his daughter Michal in marriage. When Saul realized that the Lord was with David and his daughter Michal loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him, and he remained his enemy the rest of his days. The Philistine commanders continued to go out in battle, and as often as they did, David was met with more success than the rest of Saul's officers, and his name became well known. Saul took his son Jonathan and all the attendants to kill David. Told his son Jonathan, rather, and all his attendants to kill David, which is ridiculous, right? Because we know Jonathan loves David like a brother. This is chapter 19. But Jonathan had taken a great liking to David and warned him, My father Saul is looking for a chance to kill you. Be on your guard. Tomorrow morning, go into hiding and stay there. I will go out and stand with my father in a field, and where you are, I'll speak to him about you and will tell you what I find out. Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul and to Saul his father, and said to him, let not the king do wrong to his servant David. He has not wronged you, and what has he done? And what he has done has benefited you greatly. He took his life into his own hands when he killed the Philistine, and the Lord won a great victory for Israel, and you saw it and were glad. Why then would you do the wrong to an innocent man like David by killing him for no reason? Saul listened to Jonathan and took this oath. And remember, oaths are taken pretty seriously. As surely as the Lord lives, David will not be put to death. So Jonathan called David and told him the whole conversation. He brought him to Saul, and David was with Saul as before. Once more, war broke out, and David went out and fought the Philistines. He struck them with such force that they fled before him. But an evil spirit from the Lord came on Saul. There it is again, as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand, just brewing with his spear in his hand. While David was playing the lyre, Saul tried to pin him to the wall again, but David eluded him as Saul drove the spear into the wall. That night, David made good his escape, so he got well away from Saul, it sounds like. And once again, he's going to be hiding in caves soon. And remember that Samson hides in caves. So I just wonder, once again, where is that cave that Samson originally hid in, and which caves did David hide in? It's just interesting to think about. When Saul sent the men to capture David, Michal said, "He is ill." And then Saul sent the men back to David and told him, "Bring him up to me in his bed so I may kill him." But when the men entered, there was an idol in the bed at the head where was some goat's hair. That's a very detailed description. It's almost like something you'd see in a movie. An idol was there and goat's hair. Saul said to Michal, "Why did you deceive me like this and send my enemy away so that he escaped?" And Michal said, "He said to me, 'Let me get away. Why should I kill you?'" Oh, so she wasn't totally honest, but it's probably because it was smart for her to lie. I'm going to give her a little bit of slack. When David had fled and made his escape, he went to Samuel at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. I'm not saying that she shouldn't have told the truth, because if she was really amazing, she would have. She would have just stood up for him, right? He went to Samuel as he made his escape at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done. Samuel's got to be an old dude now. Then he and Samuel went to Noeth and stayed there. Word came to Saul, "David is at Noeth and at Ramah," and he sent men to capture him. But when they saw a group of prophets prophesying, when Samuel was standing there as their leader, the Spirit of God came on Saul's men, and they also prophesied. Saul was told about it, and he sent more men, and they prophesied too. And Saul sent men a third time, and they also prophesied. Jeez, so Lord's just like straight up owning these dudes with his spirit. And finally, he himself left for Ramah and went to the cistern, and he asked, "Where are Samuel and David?" "Over in Noeth and Ramah," they said. So Saul went to Noeth and Ramah, but the Spirit of God came even on him, and he walked along prophesying until he came to Noeth. That makes me think of Balaam and the donkey, and that evil prophet who was sent to curse Israel, and instead all he could do was bless. Except this time it's a king of Israel. It's Saul himself, right? He stripped off his garments, and he too prophesied in Samuel's presence. He lay naked all that day and all that night. This is why people say, "Is Saul also among the prophets?" That's not the first time Saul's done the prophet thing, but it is the first time that I think he was humiliated that much. In David and Jonathan, chapter 20. Alright, this will be the last one for tonight. Then David fled from Noeth and Ramah and went to Jonathan and asked, "What have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged your father and that he is trying to kill me?" "Never," Jonathan replied. "You are not going to die. Look, my father doesn't do anything great or small without letting me know. Why would he hide this from me? It isn't so." But David took an oath and said, "Your father knows very well that I have found favor in your eyes." And he has said to himself, "Jonathan must know that this is, know this, or he will be grieved. Yet as surely as the Lord lives, and as you live, there is only a step between me and death." And Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you want me to do, I will do for you." And this is one of the tightest relationships ever recorded in the Bible. I would say the only one that to me is obviously stronger, maybe, is the one between Jesus and Jonathan, which is also a John. That's interesting, isn't it? So there's John and Jesus, and then there's John and David. That's very interesting. And they're both friends with the chosen one. Whoa, that's crazy. All right. Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you want me to do, I will do for you." And so David said, "Look, tomorrow is the new moon feast, and I am supposed to dine with the king, but let me go and hide me in the field until the evening of the day after tomorrow. If your father misses me at all, tell him, David earnestly asked my permission to hurry to Bethlehem, his hometown, because an annual sacrifice is being made there for his whole clan. If he says, very well, then your servant is safe. But if he loses his temper, and you can be sure that he is determined to harm me, as for you, show kindness to your servant, for you have brought him into covenant with you before the Lord. If I am guilty, then kill me yourself. Why hand me over to your father? Never, Jonathan said. If I have the least inkling that my father was determined to harm you, wouldn't I tell you? David asked, who will tell me if your father answers you harshly? Come, Jonathan said, let's go out into the field. So they went there. Then Jonathan said to David, I swear by the Lord, that the God of Israel, that I will surely sound out my father by this time of the day after tomorrow. If he is favorably disposed toward you, will I not send you word and let you know? But if my father intends to harm you, may the Lord deal with Jonathan, be it ever so severely. He's speaking of himself here. If I do not let you know and send you away in peace, may the Lord be with you as he has been with my father. But show me unfailing kindness like the Lord's kindness, as long as I live, so that I may not be killed. And do not ever cut off your kindness from my family. That's a heartbreaking part. Not even when the Lord has cut off everyone or David's enemies from the face of the earth. And there you can almost sense Jonathan's heartbreak, that like he senses his dad is probably teetering on madness, or at the very least just becoming a bad person, a bad man. What a hard place to be. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord call David's enemies, may the Lord call David's enemies to account. And Jonathan had David reaffirm his oath out of love for him, because he loved him as he loved himself. And then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is the new moon feast. You will be missed, because your seat will be empty. The day after tomorrow, toward evening, go to the place where you hide when this trouble began, and wait by the stone Ezel, and I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it, as though I were shooting at a target. Then I will send a boy and say, go find the arrows. If I say to him, look, the arrows are on the side of you, bring them here. Then come, because as surely as the Lord lives, you are safe. This is no danger. There is no danger. But if I say to the boy, look, the arrows are beyond you, then you must go, because the Lord has sent you away. The arrows are beyond you. This situation is beyond us, right? That's a pretty good signal. Boys are beyond you. Then you must go, because the Lord has sent you away. And about that matter I discussed, remember, the Lord is a witness between you and me forever. So David hid in the field, and when the new moon feast came, the king sat down to eat. He sat in his customary place by the wall opposite Jonathan, and Abner sat next to Saul, but David's place was empty. And Saul said, oh, that's so sad. So he ate with them often, and now he can't. And there's just an empty seat right there, and everybody's thinking it, but probably no one's talking about it. Saul said nothing that day, for he thought something must have happened to David to make him ceremonially unclean. Surely he is unclean. So he was expecting to be there, and he's not. So that's even more crazy. But Saul is just kind of giving him a pass about being ceremonially unclean. But the next day of the second day of the month, David's place was empty again, and then Saul said to his son Jonathan, "Why hasn't the son of Jesse come to the meal, either yesterday or today?" And Jonathan answered, "David earnestly asked me for permission to go to Bethlehem. He said, 'Let me go, because our family is observing a sacrifice in town, and my brother has ordered me to be there. If I have found favor in your eyes, let me get away to see my brothers.' That is why he has not come to the king's table." Saul's anger flared up at Jonathan and said, "You son of a perverse and rebellious woman, don't I know that you have sided with the son of Jesse, to your own shame, and to the shame of the mother who bore you? As long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Now send someone to bring him to me, for he must die." "Ooh, why should he be put to death? What has he done?" Jonathan asked to his father. But Saul hurled his spear at him to kill him. Wow, so he sent a couple of spears at David, and now he's sending spears at his own son. Then Jonathan knew his father intended to kill David, and Jonathan got up from the table in fierce anger. On that second day of the feast, he did not eat because he was grieved at his father's shameful treatment of David. In the morning, Jonathan went out to the field for his meeting with David, and he had a small boy with him. And he said to the boy, "Run and find the arrows I shoot." And the boy ran, and he shot an arrow beyond him. Then the boy came to the place where Jonathan's arrow had fallen. Jonathan called out after him, "Isn't the arrow beyond you?" Then he shouted, "Hurry, go quickly, don't stop." The boy picked up the arrow and returned to the master. The boy knew nothing about all of this. Only Jonathan and David knew. Then Jonathan gave his weapons to the boy and said, "Go carry them back to town." After the boy had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone and bowed again before Jonathan 3 times with his face to the ground. Then they kissed each other and wept together. But David wept the most. And Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace, for we have sworn friendship with each other in the name of the Lord, saying, 'The Lord is witness between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever.'" And then David left, and Jonathan went back to town. And that is it for now. It's one of the epics of the Bible, right? Yeah. We're going to start with chapter 21 tomorrow. And thanks for listening, guys. I hope you have a good night or day or whenever you're watching this.